Howdy, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here, Chief Sports South Carolina, the BigSpur.com Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Another transfer portal piece of news and information to break down. It happened yesterday afternoon while we were actually broadcasting Inside the Gamecocks, the show, and another surprise, right? Surprise, surprise, surprise. The Gamecocks land a linebacker from Alabama, Justin Okoronkwo. I think Okoronkwo. Yeah, I've got it written out phonetically. 6'3", 228 pounds, was a true freshman at Bama last year. Originally from Munich, Germany. Played soccer growing up, was a gymnast growing up. Outstanding testing numbers out of high school, with his size, and then a 4.5 second 40, that's straight line, a 4 second short shuttle, which I like with linebackers because it sort of measures their ability to change direction and a little bit of explosiveness. And then the broad jump was 10-2. That is explosiveness. Alabama did not want him to leave. The backstory here sort of is he was a guy that Nick Saban recruited to Alabama, so committed and signed with them under the old staff. And then the new staff under Kalen DeBoer comes in. He goes through this year, played more and more as the season went on, and Alabama was flat out loaded at linebacker this year. But they have a lot of guys going to the NFL, a lot of guys in the portal that teams want. The teams want. Clemson actually got Jeremiah Alexander out of the transfer portal. Clemson's in the portal. There we go. I think they've got two or three heading up to Dabo this year. But this guy has a long, long runway. I mean, you talk about upside, ceiling, floor, all that good stuff. International guy, so obviously played club football in Europe before spending a year at Alabama. But the risk factor here to me is less. And it's almost a lean more towards I think he can make an impact sooner than later. I'm not guaranteeing he'll start, but he could. He could. He's that athletically talented, and then you worry about football. When you have the raw materials, you got that in place, but you still got to cook the meal. You got all the best ingredients. You can go to the fresh market or wherever and get high end ingredients, and then you still got to cook the meal. You got to prep the meal. And he had a year of prepping at one of the better programs in the SEC. Alabama's resources and things like that did not go away with Saban. Saban's not driving the bus anymore, and that's a little bit, I think that's obviously it's going to hurt anybody if Nick Saban's not there. But this guy got better and better and better the whole season, and ended up with 14 tackles as a true freshman, played a lot of special teams. When he got on the field, he was good. They just reading the reaction to him leaving, they really didn't want him to leave. They thought he had a bright future in Tuscaloosa. But hey, he signed with another coaching staff. So, Carolina was recruiting him out of high school, liked him, and he opted for Bama at the end of the day. And then the Gamecocks get him back. This is why you keep relationships going. When did I know about this? I had a video about Webb, and I'll talk a little about him and Cisse earlier. And I said there may be some other guys out there. Had to kind of keep it quiet because he got in the portal on January 6th. Today's January 11th. He signed yesterday. So he kind of flew under. He didn't have a do not contact, which when they have a do not contact like Carson Beck, by the way, Miami, I feel like they're setting themselves up for a lot of offseason hype and a lot of heartbreak with that one. Nevertheless, I'll talk about that at some other time because you guys don't want to hear about Miami and Carson Beck. But, Carson Beck went in, it was do not contact, and he ended up, because he was going to Miami, sort of knew where he was going. But this kid did not have a do not contact, so you want to kind of keep it under the radar. And so he visited like Wednesday, and we couldn't talk about it. And then, kind of got out a little bit as these things do. You can't keep anything totally quiet these days. And then it went ahead and signed right when it was getting good, where it was about to get out, he signed. So the Gamecocks were successfully stealth with that as far as getting guys in and, getting a guy in like that under the radar before somebody else could counter and all that good stuff. So the international, I think this is probably the first international guy the Gamecocks have had since the late Holtz, early Spurrier days with the Canadians. Robert Pavlovich, Justin Sorensen, 3-year starter, the Canadian Lumberjack. Love that guy. And then Gurminder, who could ever forget Gurminder Thind, who is a personal trainer now, from what I've seen out there. Those guys were all from Canada. And Lou Holtz, Dave DeGlumo, who was the O-line coach here for a while under Holtz, recruited all those guys. And then they ended up mostly playing for Spurrier during the early Spurrier years. But they were Canadians. I can't, if I'm missing someone that's European in football, let me know. Has there been like an Aussie kicker here or anything? I don't. I mean, you're talking 20 years there, so maybe there has been, and I just don't know it. I know there's been some guys that have maybe gone to school in the States, but have maybe had roots somewhere else. But I don't know of any guy like this who is still parents are living in Europe, in Germany, Deutschland. Ah, yeah. So but he's a big pickup, man. I like guys like this that have that athleticism and that upside that are learning the game. And I mentioned the football part of it. So the key here now, so the question automatically becomes, when you get a freak athlete like this, when's he going to be ready to start? We've had Nick Harbor at wide receiver, who is a kind of a work in progress, gradually along and along and along. He's getting better and better and better. It frustrates some fans. I don't understand why. Because people like me scream till you're blue in the face that your 5-star rating, whether or not you think it should mean somebody should start at least by their second year, it doesn't mean that. Nobody in the industry puts 5 stars on a guy and says, I'm a failure if they don't start by year 2. It's a trend line, and you want the trend line to be up. And just like in football, if you look at somebody on Instagram has one of the college football accounts has a trend line with rankings. Like, you'll have your team and, it goes up, it goes down. You want that trend line at the end to be up. Now, different trend lines, as we all know, if you look at South Carolina's team's trend line this year, it started spiking in November. You're 2 months into the season. And the end result was the end result. So I think with regards to players and all that, that's what you want. Now, are there 5 stars that come in ready to play? Absolutely. Look at Dylan Stewart. That guy's ready to rock and roll. Marcus Lattimore, ready to rock and roll. Clowney came in. I know the old saying is he didn't start. Well, that's because Melvin Ingram was on the team. Pretty good player. And but he wreaked havoc. Second game of his career at Georgia, shook the ball loose from Aaron Murray at the end and won the game. That game ended up being 3 points because Georgia scored again, 45-42. But, so those guys sometimes do. Zach Pickens was a 5-star, did not play that. I don't know that Zach ever got there to I guess he was number 4 or something by some people in the country. I don't think he ever got there. 3rd round pick. Top 100 recruit would be what you would say with that. I don't think he ever got to that point. But he's pretty good. It took a while. Jordan Birch, obviously, I don't know that he's gotten there either, but was a work in progress, even though he was a 5-star player. I mean, there haven't been that many 5 stars around here. So anyway, back to this, didn't get me to get sidetracked with Nick Harbor stuff there. That could be an all-day conversation. But with Okoronkwo, you look at the runway and the freak athleticism, and the question is, when is he going to be a football player? Because he's a 3-star transfer guy and was a high 3 coming out of high school. I get the common sense, and I don't know why there's a 3-star rating on him in the portal, and he's lower because of the feedback from Alabama. I mean, wouldn't you think that would? But anyway. I don't want to get off on that side note either, the rankings. When coming out of high school, you got a kid from Germany, you just don't know. Is he going to just hate America, hate football? The further you are from home, depending on where you go to school, I always say there's more question marks. California kids coming to the SEC. I'd like to see the numbers on the transfer. And this guy's coming all the way across the world from Europe. Home is still in Germany. So I understand the high 3-star there, but I mean, if you read the scouting report on 24/7 Sports, it clearly talks about what a freak he is. 24/7 Sports had a class of 2024 freaks list. He was on it. Like I said, spent a year at Alabama. Looked good when he got in the game. I mean, the sky is really the limit. So, again, the question is, when's he going to be a football player? Well, that's going to be determined. South Carolina on defense has a lot of work to do with getting guys better. Okay. And it's not that, oh God, they're bad now, but there's a natural development process that takes place at every school with every player on every roster. And how far you can get in the development normally determines how good you're going to play the next year because it's a combination of things. And on the D line, and I'm going to talk about the D line later, there's obviously some guys that they need to coach up and get to that starter level. And at linebacker as well. I mean, Fred Johnson was very promising during the time he played, but he's not like this grizzled veteran. And then you got to find a starter opposite him. Sean Murphy played well when he played, also started at Alabama and then spent a year at Florida State last year. Highly touted recruit, again, a Nick Saban recruit. But, you know, he hasn't gone out and done it down after down after down. We don't know if Bam Martin Scott's going to be back or not. This guy, he's signed, he's in, he's coming, going through spring. He has the ability and the raw ingredients to make that jump, to make a jump, maybe to jump faster, to make progress faster. We talked about the trend line. You could point that sucker up a little bit more with this guy. You never know because so much is between the ears and in the chest, and there's injuries and stuff like that take place that derail guys. But if he can stay healthy and there hasn't been an injury history or anything there, and he can get into the program and Clayton White can coach him up and learns the defense and all that, and he continues the progress he made at Alabama, I'm not ruling out him starting. And if you start thinking about the fact Carolina plays 2 linebackers at a time, now if Bam Martin Scott comes back, I'm pretty sure Bam Martin Scott will start. He started this year, even though Demetrius Knight probably played more snaps. They love Bam Martin Scott, and rightfully so. But let's say Martin Scott does not get the extra year, does not get to come back. Here's a guy, that's going to sit there and compete for a job, with Murphy and Fred Johnson and those cats. So, if he can make that jump. And I think it's quite possible, just looking at the evidence, looking at what happened at Alabama, his raw upside, all the freak athleticism, and all that good stuff. The coaches are very, very, very excited about this guy. Good news, bad news. Terry Webb, who I should have never gone on and on and on about him. Never, because he hadn't signed. Carolina was just kind of in the driver's seat. Knew he was going to visit SMU in Houston, and he's a Galveston, Texas kid. He goes to Texas State, Texas. And I knew SMU was going to make a move because he's a really good player. And I was like, well, what's his decision going to be? And, sometimes kids from Texas will leave Texas. Sometimes they'd have no interest in it. And SMU is 4 hours from Galveston, right up the road. They have money. This is not an outbidding situation. They had money. They went to the playoff. They're in a Power 4 conference. They probably are selling him on that. Now their stadium seats 30,000, and you're not going to get to play in front of the atmosphere that you do in the SEC. And obviously the ACC television exposure and things of that nature, probably not at the level conference wide as they are in the SEC. But SMU, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt with a lot of the big ACC games next season because they almost won the league this year. Whether or not we believe they should have been in the playoff, and I absolutely do not believe they deserve to go in the playoff this year. They were a playoff team, and it's in state. And if you're SMU recruiting the state of Texas, there's some things you can sell with connections. It's a rich school and all that good stuff. All that aside, it's severely disappointing that South Carolina did not get him. I'm not disappointed in Travian Robertson. I'm not even getting into some of the takes on his recruiting I've read that are ridiculous. That's off-season banter. I'm not coming down Travian Robertson, Shane Beamer, Darren Usher, anybody that has anything to do with recruiting. The NIL situation was not a factor, like a big factor as far as, I mean, it's a factor in the sense SMU is going to have to, match what Carolina was going to do. That's the case with everybody. But and they may throw some little goodies in there too. You never know. SMU, Texas kid, Pony Express. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's goodies everywhere. I like that word, goodies. I think of headaches because headache power and powder and like treats like cupcakes, which is exactly what SMU's freaking schedule was like this year. I digress. Nevertheless, I do think that that was a tough blow. If you ask me, rank three guys Carolina did not get in the portal this year in order as far as how much does it sting. And I don't want to say hurt because, man, we're all sitting there wondering about linebacker a week ago, and boom, okay, well, this makes total sense. Away we go. That kind of thing. I do know they have some resources they can employ NIL wise in the spring. They've gotten good players out of the spring portal at times. They're still in the mix on some guys that are yet to be, so they could still finish with a couple of players. They're not done yet for this portal window A. But I'm not going to say hurt because I don't think it hurts until you get to the next season and say, oh, these guys can't play dead in a movie, and this cat over here is blowing up. There's been many of players like Terry Webb that I've been like, I love this kid, and I wish Carolina would have gotten him, blah, blah, blah. That end up going someplace else, and you never hear from them again. Then there's some that go and tear it up. Usually it's the guys, that you're like, well, did they ever look at this guy? You just don't. College football is such a crazy thing. But if you ask me to rank it in order, Terry Webb will be one. Andrew Jones would be two. And that's just because I really was high on both those guys as players. And then Justice Haynes would be three. I think getting Faison made up for that in a lot of ways. I think Justice probably made a good decision, as far as Michigan and how they use their running backs and all that good stuff. I think they promised him a bunch of carries. I think you get a bunch of carries. You can't promise him a bunch of carries to South Carolina because kind of just like Alabama in that situation, he's going to compete with whoever's there. They're probably, he's not Rocket Sanders, so he's not going to get 80% of the carries next season. And then you have a quarterback that runs two. And when you're talking about statistics, when you're a running back, Michigan makes more sense because they'll line up and give it to the back so many times. And they got money too and prestige and all that good stuff. So, but Haynes would be three to me just because those are the guys they lost. Guys like Casey Concepcion, they bowed out. They weren't going to deal with that. And some of these other guys committed elsewhere before they visited. Some guys like Dan Key didn't even visit because they didn't have any interest. So I don't consider that a loss. You have to actually play the game to lose. But those three losses, to me, would be in order that. And Haynes, to me, I put him third just because it's like they put a lot into it. I know the staff really put a lot into recruiting him, so it's disappointing. That's the kind of thing. Does it hurt? None of these guys hurt yet, but that one probably stings. But Webb stings a whole lot more, and Jones stings a whole lot more than Haynes. And Webb would be the number one stinging loss in the transfer portal this year. Brandon Cisse, obviously, you saw the social media with Lane Kiffin. Who knows if that's a troll job or not? People still think he's coming back home, so we'll see what happens there. There's a trip to Florida on the docket, so we'll see. And then, I don't know how good. I mean, Justice Boone was from Sumter and went to Florida and left. So I don't know. I don't know that Sumter, Florida connection. But Billy Napier is going to get his shot at that guy. And then, there's a lot of talk out there about former Georgia defensive end Damon Wilson, former 5-star, and a legit dude. Like not a 5-star that's not far along in his journey yet. That guy can play. Every time he got on the field at Georgia, I thought, wow, this guy's good. Missouri's kind of in the mix. Miami's kind of in the mix. South Carolina's in the mix. Ohio State's the team to really watch there. Wants to go someplace. I was told that his issue with Georgia was not so much money driven as it was scheme driven. Georgia's defensive scheme does not set up for an end to have like Kyle Kennard numbers. It's just not, it just doesn't do. I mean, it's a great defense and it produces tons of NFL guys. Don't get me wrong. And so if you care about stats, which I mean, I guess he does, you're looking for another place. And he actually mentioned that about Ohio State's defense after the visit. There's a 4-man front, and that's what he wants to play in. South Carolina uses some 3-man, but it's primarily a 4-down, 4-2-5 deal. And if he's worried about stats, all you got to do is point to what was it, 18 combined stats between Dylan Stewart and or sacks, combined sacks between Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard this past year. So obviously this defense will allow a talented end to produce numbers. And boy, if you could get him, I'm not getting my hopes up though, folks. Just don't. Don't. I'm not getting my hopes up about anybody else after the Terry Webb thing. Drowning in sorrow about that guy because I love defensive line, man. Oh well, they'll find somebody, and who knows? Brownlow Dindy, the light comes on, he starts playing well. Goodwine and Barrett take a jump. Xavion Hardy is a JUCO that comes in and progresses quickly and well, and you got a 4-man rotation with Rondarius Porter coming in as a 5th. That's good. That's the to really have a good rotation at D tackle, the baseline sort of 4. So who knows what'll happen? I don't think the Gamecocks are done at D tackle though. They're going to scour the earth for them. Anyway, hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday. JC Shurburtt here again. Go to bigspur.com. Use promo code BigSpur50 for half off a VIP membership annually. And you can pay full price, get Paramount Plus. Also, Inside the Gamecocks, the show, Monday through Friday, right here on Chief Sports South Carolina. Go hit that subscribe button here on this site. There'll be a little link at the end where you can actually do it. This doesn't cost anything. That helps us grow our audience and get people to all our great content. All right, so South Carolina transfer portal's wrapping up, but not done yet. I'm not done yet. JC Shurburtt signing off. I'll be back soon.